A small hand trembles as it reaches toward the microphone stand. The courtroom falls into absolute silence. Every eye in Providence Municipal Court is locked on the 10-year-old boy standing, where defendants usually tower over him. His father sits motionless in the gallery, head buried in his hands. What this child is about to confess will shatter everything you think you know about sacrifice, family, and justice. If you believe children are the truest measure of our humanity, you need to hear this story through to the end. The date was March 17, 2023. Case number PMC 202-34891 appeared on Judge Frank Caprio's docket like any other parking violation. But within minutes, it would become the most shared courtroom moment of the entire year. Drop a comment right now telling us what you would do if your child tried to take the fall for your mistake. Would you let them? Or would you stop them no matter the cost? The boy's name is Marcus Chen, 10 years old, 4th grade at Hope Elementary. He's wearing a navy blue polo shirt from Target, khaki pants that are slightly too long, and sneakers with Velcro straps instead of laces. His black hair is neatly combed to the side. Someone clearly tried to make him look presentable for court. His hands grip a crumpled piece of notebook paper covered in pencil marks and eraser smudges. Hit that subscribe button if you believe one moment can reveal someone's entire character. Because what you're about to witness will restore your faith in humanity or break your heart. Maybe both. Judge Frank Caprio sits at the bench reviewing the case file. At 77 years old, he's presided over thousands of cases in this courthouse. His kind eyes have seen every excuse, every lie, every desperate plea. But nothing has prepared him for what Marcus Chen is about to say. The bailiff, Officer Raymond Torres, stands near the door. Court clerk Jennifer Morrison types steadily at her computer. In the gallery sit about 30 people waiting for their own cases to be called. They have no idea they're about to witness something extraordinary. Marcus's father, David Chen, sits in the 3rd row. He's 38 years old, wearing a faded gray sweatshirt and jeans with paint stains. His work boots are scuffed and worn. He's a painting contractor who immigrated from Taiwan 12 years ago, building a life for his family one brushstroke at a time. His wife, Susan, passed away 14 months ago from ovarian cancer. It devastated their family. It devastated Marcus most of all. The case before the court seems simple enough. A parking ticket issued on February 28, 2023 at 3:47 p.m. The violation occurred in a handicapped parking space outside Rhode Island Hospital. The fine is $350. David Chen's pickup truck, a 2008 Ford F-150 with contractor equipment in the bed, was photographed parked in the blue marked space without a disability placard displayed. Like this video if you've ever had to choose between doing the right thing and protecting someone you love. That impossible choice is about to tear this courtroom apart. But here's where the story takes its first unexpected turn. David Chen isn't standing before the judge. His son, Marcus, is. The boy had begged, pleaded, and finally convinced his father to let him come to court alone. David agreed only to accompany him, sitting in the gallery while his son approached the bench. What David doesn't know is what Marcus has written on that crumpled paper. What David doesn't know is that his son is about to commit perjury to protect him. Case number PMC 202-34891. Judge Caprio announces, his voice warm but authoritative. Parking violation issued to David Chen. He looks up from the paperwork and his eyebrows rise slightly. Is Mr. Chen present? Quote. Marcus steps forward. His voice comes out as barely a whisper. I'm here for my dad, Your Honor. The courtroom's ambient noise, the shuffling of papers, the quiet conversations, everything stops. Judge Caprio leans forward. Young man, what's your name? Quote. Marcus Chen, Your Honor. I'm 10 years old. His voice shakes but grows slightly stronger. I'm here because I'm the one who parked in that spot. Not my dad. It was me. Quote. Share this video with someone who needs to see what real love looks like, because this child is about to sacrifice everything for his father. Judge Caprio removes his reading glasses slowly. He's heard many things in his decades on the bench, but this admission carries a weight that makes the air itself feel heavier. Marcus, "You're telling me you were driving your father's truck?" Quote, "Yes, Your Honor." Marcus unfolds his wrinkled paper with trembling hands. "I have a statement I wrote. Can I read it?" Quote, In the gallery, David Chen's head snaps up. His face goes pale. He half rises from his seat, but Officer Torres, sensing the situation's delicacy, gives him a subtle gesture to remain seated. David's mouth opens, but no sound emerges. His son is lying to a judge. His son is protecting him from something David himself doesn't fully understand yet. "Go ahead, Marcus," Judge Caprio says gently. "I'm listening." Marcus takes a shaky breath. "On February 28th, my dad had to go inside the hospital to pick up my mom's medical records. We needed them for some paperwork. He told me to wait in the truck. But I saw the spot right in front was open. I thought I would help him. I thought if I moved the truck closer, he wouldn't have to walk so far when he came back out. He's been really tired lately, working 2 jobs. So I climbed into the driver's seat. The courtroom is so quiet you could hear a pin drop on carpet. Everyone leans forward unconsciously. This isn't what anyone expected. I turned the key and the truck started. I've watched my dad drive a million times. I put it in drive like he does. I pressed the gas pedal just a little, and I moved the truck into that parking spot. I didn't see the wheelchair symbol on the ground until after I parked. I didn't know it was a special spot. When my dad came back, I was sitting in the passenger seat again. He never knew I moved the truck. The ticket was my fault, not his. He shouldn't have to pay for my mistake. Drop a comment right now. Do you think Marcus is telling the truth, or is this the most heartbreaking lie you've ever heard? Judge Caprio sets down his glasses completely. He studies Marcus with eyes that have learned to see through decades of deception, desperation, and occasional grace. The judge's expression is unreadable. In the gallery, David Chen has tears streaming down his face. He's shaking his head slowly, silently mouthing the word no over and over. "Marcus." Judge Caprio says, his voice gentle but probing, "This is very serious. When we speak in a courtroom, we're under oath to tell the truth. Do you understand that?" Quote, "Yes, Your Honor. I understand. I'm telling the truth. I moved the truck. My dad didn't do anything wrong." The judge glances at the case file again, then at the parking enforcement photo attached to it. He can see the F-150 clearly parked in the handicapped space. The timestamp confirms 3:47 p.m., but something in Marcus's story doesn't align. Something about the way the boy's eyes flicker toward his father, the way his small hands grip that paper like a lifeline, tells a different tale. "Your Honor, may I approach?" David Chen's voice cuts through the tension. He's standing now, unable to stay silent any longer. His accent carries the weight of his native Mandarin beneath his English words. "Please, Your Honor. My son, he's trying to protect me, but he shouldn't. This is my fault, all my fault." Hit the like button if you can feel your heart breaking right now, because a father and son are about to collide in the most painful way possible. Judge Caprio nods. "Mr. Chen, please come forward." David walks down the aisle between the gallery benches. His work boots sound heavy against the tile floor. When he reaches his son, he puts both hands on Marcus's shoulders. The boy looks up at his father with eyes full of tears he's been fighting to hold back. "Marcus," David says softly, "you don't have to do this." "Yes, I do, Dad. You can't afford the ticket. We can barely pay rent. If you get another fine, we might lose the apartment. I had to do something." The manipulation of a child's pure love, the weaponization of poverty against dignity. If you're not angry yet, you should be. Comment below and tell us when the system stopped protecting families and started punishing them instead. David turns to Judge Caprio, his voice breaking. "Your Honor, my son is lying to protect me. I'm the one who parked there. I was the one who made the decision. Marcus was never behind that wheel. He's 10 years old. He can barely reach the pedals even if he tried." "Dad, no!" Marcus's composure finally shatters. Tears pour down his face. "You told me last week we might have to move again. You said the rent was going up and money was tight. $350 is too much." "It's too much, Dad. Let me take the blame, please. I can do community service or something. Kids don't have to pay fines like adults do, right?" He turns desperately to Judge Caprio. "Right, Your Honor. You won't make me pay, will you?" Quote. The courtroom has transformed into something else entirely. This isn't a legal proceeding anymore. It's a window into private desperation, into the impossible calculations poor families make every single day. Should we pay the ticket or buy groceries? Should we fix the car or pay the electric bill? Should we protect our pride or sacrifice our children's innocence? Judge Caprio stands up from the bench. This is unusual. Judges rarely leave their elevated position during proceedings, but Frank Caprio didn't become beloved for following convention. He walks down from the bench and approaches Marcus and David. His black robe flows behind him like a cape of authority tempered with compassion. "Marcus, look at me," the judge says, standing directly in front of the boy. "I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say." The entire courtroom holds its breath. Officer Torres has quietly positioned himself where he can see everything clearly. Court Clerk Morrison has stopped typing entirely. The other people waiting for their cases sit frozen, witnesses to something none of them will ever forget. If this moment doesn't make you subscribe to see how it ends, nothing will. Click that button right now, because what happens next will leave you speechless. "When I was about your age," Judge Caprio begins, "my father was struggling too. We were immigrants, just like your family. My father worked so hard, Marcus, so hard, his hands would crack and bleed. And one day, he made a mistake. He parked where he shouldn't have. And you know what I wanted to do? The same thing you're doing right now. I wanted to protect him. I wanted to take the blame. Because that's what children do when they love their parents more than anything in the world." Marcus's tears flow freely now. David stands behind his son, his own face wet with emotion. "But here's what I learned, Marcus, and this is very important. The greatest gift you can give your father isn't taking the blame. It's letting him be the man he's trying to be. Your father came to this country to build a better life for you. He works 2 jobs not because he has to, but because he loves you. And part of being a man, part of being a father, is taking responsibility for your own mistakes. If you take that away from him, you're not protecting him. You're telling him he's not strong enough to handle his own life." The words land like hammer blows. Marcus's expression shifts from determination to confusion to something like understanding. But there's more to this story. There's always more. Judge Caprio turns to David. "Mr. Chen, tell me about February 28th. Tell me the truth, all of it." Quote. David's shoulders slump. The fight drains out of him. "Your Honor, that day I went to the hospital to collect my wife's records. Susan, my wife, she died last year from cancer. Stage 4 ovarian cancer. The medical bills destroyed us financially. Even with insurance, we ended up with over $90,000 in debt. I'm still paying it off. I'll be paying it off for the rest of my life. Share this with someone who thinks they're struggling alone. You're not. Millions of families face this same impossible situation every single day." David continues, his voice thick with emotion. "That day, February 28th, I was picking up records to contest some charges. The hospital made billing errors. I was trying to fight them. Marcus was with me because his after-school program was closed for teacher training. I told him to wait in the truck. The hospital parking lot was completely full. Every single spot. I drove around for 15 minutes looking for a space. I was going to be late getting back to my afternoon job. I paint houses, Your Honor. If I'm late, I lose clients. If I lose clients, we can't eat. The arithmetic of poverty, the calculus of desperation. Add it up and tell us in the comments how this equals justice." "So I made a decision," David says. "A bad decision. I saw the handicap spot. I saw it was open. And I told myself I'd only be 10 minutes. Just run inside, get the records, run back out. I told myself it wasn't really hurting anyone because I didn't see any other cars waiting. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I have no excuse. The ticket is fair. I deserve it. But, Your Honor, I couldn't pay it. The notice said if I didn't pay within 30 days, it would double to $700. If I didn't pay that, they'd boot my truck. If they boot my truck, I can't work. If I can't work, we lose everything." Marcus grabs his father's hand. "That's why I had to help, Dad. That's why I had to try." Quote, "But you can't, son. David says, kneeling down to eye level with Marcus. "You can't fix this. This isn't your burden. You're 10 years old. You should be thinking about video games and homework and what you want to be when you grow up. You shouldn't be standing in a courtroom trying to save your dad from his own stupid mistake. Like this video if you believe the system is broken when children have to become heroes to save their parents." Judge Caprio places a hand on David's shoulder. "Mr. Chen, stand up. Both of you, look at me." Father and son stand together, Marcus still gripping his father's hand. They look small and vulnerable before the machinery of justice. The parking ticket, a simple civil infraction, has become a referendum on so much more. On healthcare costs that bankrupt families. On wages that don't match living expenses. On the razor's edge that millions of Americans walk every single day. "I'm going to tell you what I see," Judge Caprio says. "I see a man who works 2 jobs to provide for his son. I see a man who made one bad decision in a moment of desperation. And I see a boy who loves his father so much that he was willing to lie to a judge, risk his own future, and carry guilt that doesn't belong to him." The judge walks back to the bench, but he doesn't sit down. He stands behind it, his hands resting on the dark wood. "Mr. Chen, the law says you parked illegally in a handicapped space. That's clear. The evidence is undeniable. That parking spot exists for people with disabilities who need closer access to the building. When you parked there, even for 10 minutes, you potentially prevented someone with a real need from using it. Do you understand why that's serious?" Quote, "Yes, Your Honor, completely. I was selfish. I was only thinking about my own problems." But, Judge Caprio continues, "The law also gives me discretion. It allows me to consider circumstances, and these circumstances matter." Drop a comment predicting what happens next. Will justice be tempered with mercy? Or will the law fall like a hammer regardless of the pain it causes? "Here's what troubles me most about this case," the judge says. "It's not that you parked in a handicapped spot. It's that we've built a society where a man can work 2 jobs and still struggle to pay a $350 fine. It's that a medical emergency can destroy a family's finances for a generation. It's that a 10-year-old boy learns he needs to sacrifice himself to save his father. That's the real crime here, and I can't fix that from this bench. I wish I could, but I can't." The courtroom feels the weight of those words. This is more than one case. It's a mirror reflecting systemic failures that Judge Caprio, for all his compassion, cannot remedy with a single ruling. "But," the judge says, and that single word makes everyone lean forward again, "what I can do is this. Marcus, you're going to go back to being a 10-year-old boy. You're going to study hard in school. You're going to play with your friends. You're going to honor your mother's memory by living the life she wanted for you. And you're going to trust that your father is strong enough to handle his own responsibilities. Can you do that?" Quote. Marcus nods, unable to speak. "Mr. Chen, I'm going to reduce this fine to $50. That's the absolute minimum I can impose under the statute. And I'm giving you 90 days to pay it. Not 30. 90. You pay me when you can, no penalties, no interest, no boot on your truck. If you need more time, you come back to this court and you tell me. We'll figure it out. Does that sound fair?" Quote. David's knees nearly buckle. "Your Honor, I don't know what to say. Thank you. Thank you so much." Quote. Hit that subscribe button right now if you believe judges like Frank Caprio represent what justice should actually look like. But the judge isn't finished. However, there's a condition. "Marcus, I want you to write me an essay. It doesn't have to be long. 1 page is fine. I want you to write about what you learned today. About truth, responsibility, and family. Can you do that for me?" Quote. "Yes, Your Honor," Marcus says, his voice small but clear. "And Mr. Chen, I want you to do 50 hours of community service. But not just any community service. I'm assigning you to volunteer with Crossroads, Rhode Island, our local homeless shelter. They need people to help with painting and repairs. You use your skills to help people even worse off than you, and you take Marcus with you for at least 10 of those hours. I want him to see his father serving others. I want him to understand that when we make mistakes, we make them right by giving back. Understood?" Quote. "Yes, Your Honor." Absolutely. Judge Caprio returns to the bench and sits down. He picks up his gavel, but before bringing it down, he says one more thing. "Marcus, come here for a moment." The boy approaches the bench. The judge reaches into his pocket and pulls out his wallet. From it, he takes two $20 bills. "This is from me personally, not from the court," Judge Caprio says, handing the money to Marcus. "I want you and your father to go get dinner tonight. A real dinner. Sit down somewhere, order what you want, and talk to each other. Talk about your mom. Talk about what you're feeling. Talk about what happened here today. Family matters more than anything else in this world. Don't forget that." Marcus takes the money with trembling hands. "Thank you, Your Honor. I promise I won't forget." If you're crying right now, you're not alone. Drop a comment telling us when the last time was that someone in authority chose compassion over punishment. Judge Caprio brings down the gavel. Case dismissed with conditions as stated. Next case. But no one moves. The courtroom remains frozen. Marcus turns and runs into his father's arms. David lifts his son off the ground, holding him tight, both of them crying openly now. Officer Torres wipes his own eyes discreetly. Several people in the gallery are visibly emotional. Court Clerk Morrison reaches for a tissue. This moment, captured on the court's video system, would be posted to YouTube later that day. Within 48 hours, it would have 15 million views. Within a week, 30 million. Comments poured in from every corner of the globe. "This is what justice looks like. Judge Caprio restored my faith in humanity. We need more judges like this. That boy's love for his father made me call my own dad." But the story doesn't end there. It never does in real life. 6 weeks later, an envelope arrived at Providence Municipal Court. Inside was a handwritten letter on lined paper. The handwriting was careful. The letters formed with the deliberate precision of a child who wanted every word to be perfect. Share this video right now, because what Marcus wrote will change how you think about justice, family, and second chances. The letter read, "Dear Judge Caprio, my name is Marcus Chen. I'm the boy who tried to take the blame for my dad's parking ticket. You told me to write an essay about what I learned. I'm sorry it took me a while. I wanted to make it really good. I learned that lying is always wrong, even when you think you're helping someone. I thought if I lied, I could save my dad from a problem. But I made everything worse. I made my dad feel bad. I made him cry in court. That wasn't helping. That was making him feel like he failed me. He didn't fail me. He's the best dad in the world. I learned that grown-ups have to face their own problems. My dad always tells me I need to take responsibility for my actions. He tells me that if I break something, I need to say I did it and try to fix it. I learned that rule works for dads too. Even though I wanted to protect him, I realized that treating him like he couldn't handle his own problem wasn't respecting him. My mom used to say that love means believing in someone even when things are hard. I learned that sometimes judges care about people, not just rules. On TV, judges always seem mean and scary. But you weren't. You listened to our whole story. You didn't just see a parking ticket. You saw me and my dad and what we've been going through. You saw that we're trying our best. That meant everything to us. I also learned that we're not alone. After we left court, my dad told me about all the people who struggle like us. He said millions of families are working hard but still can't pay all their bills. He said that's not their fault, and it's not our fault either. The system isn't fair to everyone. But people like you make it a little better. My dad and I went to dinner that night with the money you gave us. We went to this Chinese restaurant called Lucky Garden. We ordered orange chicken and fried rice and egg rolls. It was so good. We talked about Mom. Dad told me stories about when they first met in Taiwan. He told me she would be proud of me for trying to help him, but she would also be proud that I learned why it was wrong. We've been doing the community service at Crossroads Shelter. I've gone with my dad 5 times so far. We helped paint 3 rooms. One was a playroom for kids who stay there. I picked the color bright blue like the sky. My dad let me help paint even though I got some on my shoes. The people there were really nice. Some of them have kids my age. One boy, his name is Tyler, he doesn't have his own room. He sleeps in a big room with lots of other families. It made me realize that even though my dad and I don't have a lot, we have more than some people. We have our own apartment. We have each other. I'm doing better in school now too. I was so worried about money and about my dad that I wasn't paying attention in class. My teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, noticed I seemed happier. I told her what happened in court. She gave me a hug and said she was proud of me. Judge Caprio, thank you for being kind to us. Thank you for giving my dad a chance. He paid the $50 last week. He wanted to pay it early to show you that he keeps his promises. He's working really hard on the community service. He says helping other people makes him feel good. It makes him feel like even though he made a mistake, he can still make a difference. I think what I learned most is that everybody makes mistakes. But good people try to fix them. My dad is a good person, you're a good person. And I'm going to try to be a good person too. Thank you again for everything. Sincerely, Marcus Chen. P.S. My dad said I should tell you that he hasn't parked in a handicapped spot since that day. He said he never will again. He drives around looking for regular spots, no matter how long it takes. He said your kindness taught him more than any punishment could have. Like this video if you believe a 10-year-old boy just taught us more about grace than most adults will learn in a lifetime. Judge Caprio kept that letter in his desk drawer. He would show it to law students who came to observe his court. He'd read it aloud when people asked him about judicial discretion and compassion on the bench. This, he would say, holding up Marcus's carefully written words, this is why I do this job. Not to punish, not to collect fines, but to remind people of their own humanity, to give them a chance to be better than their worst moment. The video of the courtroom hearing continued to spread. It was featured on local news, then national news. Good Morning America ran a segment. The Today Show invited Judge Caprio and the Chen family for an interview. Ellen DeGeneres showed the clip on her program and sent David a check for $10,000 to help with medical debt. The GoFundMe campaign that someone created without the Chen family's knowledge raised $73,000. David was initially reluctant to accept charity. Pride is a powerful thing, especially for someone who spent his entire life working for everything he has. But Marcus convinced him. Dad, the boy said, Judge Caprio taught us that when people want to help, we should let them. He helped us. Now other people want to help too. It's okay to say yes. Comment below if you think pride can sometimes hurt us more than help us. When is it okay to accept help? With the donated money, David paid off a significant portion of the medical debt. He put $15,000 in a college savings account for Marcus. He used some to upgrade his painting equipment, which allowed him to take on bigger jobs. He quit his second job, which meant he could spend evenings with his son instead of working until midnight. He started a small scholarship fund in Susan's name at Marcus's school to help other families struggling with expenses. The community service requirement transformed from an obligation into a commitment. David continued volunteering at Crossroads even after completing his 50 hours. He recruited other contractors to donate their time and skills. Together they renovated 6 rooms at the shelter. Marcus continued joining him, now bringing school supplies and books he'd outgrown to donate to the children staying there. At school, Marcus wrote a report about his experience for his 5th grade social studies class the following year. The assignment was to interview someone about the justice system. Instead of interviewing someone else, he wrote about his own story. His teacher submitted it to a statewide essay contest. Marcus won 2nd place and a $500 savings bond. Hit subscribe if you believe one moment of compassion can create ripples that change dozens of lives. Judge Frank Caprio, for his part, continued doing what he'd always done. Day after day, case after case, he brought humanity to the bench. He looked beyond the letter of the law to see the people before him. Not everyone agreed with his methods. Some critics argued he was too lenient, that he didn't uphold the law consistently, that his viral moments were more about entertainment than justice. But those critics never stood in that courtroom. They never saw the single mother break down in tears when he waived her parking fines because she'd been at the hospital with her sick child. They never watched the elderly veteran stand a little straighter when the judge thanked him for his service and dismissed his ticket. They never felt the shift in the air when someone expecting judgment received understanding instead. The Chen case became Judge Caprio's most famous moment, but it wasn't unique. It was simply the most visible example of what he did every single day. He proved that the justice system, so often criticized for being cold and impersonal, could be something else. It could be human. It could consider context. It could balance accountability with compassion. Providence Municipal Court receives hundreds of requests each year from people hoping their cases will be heard by Judge Caprio. Most don't get that opportunity. The court assigns cases randomly, but those who do appear before him often leave transformed, not by the ruling itself, but by the experience of being truly seen and heard. Tell us in the comments, if you were Judge Caprio, how would you have handled this case? Would you have done something different? Marcus Chen is 13 years old now, as of this writing in late 2025. He's in 8th grade. He's an honor roll student. He plays clarinet in the school band. He volunteers every other weekend at Crossroads Shelter, where he's become something of a fixture. The staff there calls him Marcus the Helper. He assists with whatever needs doing, organizing donations, playing with younger kids, helping serve meals. He still carries the weight of his mother's absence. Grief doesn't disappear just because beautiful things happen afterward. But he's learned to carry it differently. He talks about her often, keeping her memory alive through stories. He visits her grave every month with his father, bringing fresh flowers and updating her on his life. David Chen's painting business has grown. He now employs 2 other people, immigrants like himself who needed a chance. He pays them fairly and treats them with respect. He never parks in handicapped spaces. He keeps a copy of the parking ticket in his truck's glove compartment as a reminder. On the anniversary of the court hearing each year, David and Marcus have dinner at Lucky Garden, the Chinese restaurant where they went that first night. They order orange chicken and fried rice and egg rolls. They talk about how much their lives have changed. They remember the moment that could have broken them but instead became the foundation for something better. Share this video with your family. Talk about what Marcus and David taught us about love, responsibility, and grace. Judge Caprio retired in early 2024 at the age of 78. His final day on the bench was covered by news outlets across the country. The courtroom was packed with people whose lives he'd touched over his decades of service. Marcus and David were there, sitting in the front row. When the proceedings ended, Marcus approached the bench one last time. "Your Honor," Marcus said, now a young teenager with his father's kind eyes and his mother's determination, "I wanted you to know something. 3 years ago, you changed my life. You taught me what it means to be a good person. I've decided what I want to be when I grow up." Judge Caprio smiled, his aged face crinkling with curiosity. "What's that, Marcus?" Quote, "I want to be a judge. Like you, I want to help people the way you helped us. I want to make sure that when people are struggling, someone sees them, someone cares, someone gives them a chance. If that doesn't make you believe in the power of compassion to transform generations, nothing will. Comment and tell us about a time someone's kindness changed your life's direction." The courtroom erupted in applause. Judge Caprio stood and walked down from the bench for the last time. He embraced Marcus, then David. "You're going to be an excellent judge," he told Marcus. "Better than me. Because you've already learned what took me decades to understand. Justice without mercy is just cruelty in a black robe." The video from that day went viral too. The image of the retired judge hugging the teenage boy he'd helped years earlier became iconic. It represented hope. It represented the possibility that systems designed to punish could instead be reformed to heal. Marcus is still years away from law school, of course. He has high school to finish, college to attend, the LSAT to conquer, but those who know him don't doubt he'll achieve his goal. He has something that can't be taught in any law school. He understands both sides of the bench. He knows what it feels like to stand before the machinery of justice feeling small and powerless. And he knows what it feels like when that machine operates with a human heart. David keeps a framed photo in their living room. It's from the court hearing, captured by a news photographer who was covering Judge Caprio that day. In the image, Marcus stands at the microphone, his father behind him with hands on his shoulders, and Judge Caprio leaning forward with an expression of intense focus and compassion. The photo has been featured in articles about judicial reform, about poverty and justice, about the immigrant experience, about parent-child relationships. But for David and Marcus, it's simpler than all that. It's a reminder of the day they could have lost everything but instead found something they didn't know they were looking for. They found proof that the system, for all its flaws, still has room for people who care. They found that one person with authority and empathy can change lives. They found that even in their darkest moment, they weren't alone. Like this video if you believe we need more Judge Caprios in the world. Because we do. We desperately do. The Chen family's story raises uncomfortable questions about American society. How did we build a system where working 2 jobs isn't enough? How did healthcare become so expensive that a single illness can destroy a family's finances for decades? How did parking fines and minor infractions become mechanisms that trap poor people in cycles of debt? Judge Caprio couldn't fix those systemic problems from his municipal courtroom bench. But he could choose compassion over cruelty in individual cases. He could recognize that the law is meant to serve people, not the other way around. He could use his discretion to prevent a parking ticket from becoming a family's catastrophe. The critics who argued he was too lenient missed the point entirely. The point wasn't that David Chen shouldn't be held accountable. He was accountable. He admitted his mistake, accepted the reduced fine, completed community service, and changed his behavior. The point was that accountability doesn't require destruction. Justice doesn't demand that we kick people when they're already down. What would have happened if Judge Caprio had thrown the book at David? The full fine, plus penalties, plus the truck booted? David would have lost his ability to work. They would have lost their apartment. Marcus would have learned that the system doesn't care about people like them. Father and son would have been pushed further into the margins, another casualty of poverty's unforgiving arithmetic. Instead, they were given a chance, and they took it. They became better. They paid forward the grace they received. That's the whole point of justice, isn't it? Not to punish for punishment's sake, but to create conditions where people can learn, grow, and contribute. Drop a comment telling us what you think justice should look like. Should it focus on punishment or rehabilitation? On making examples or making things right? Marcus's willingness to lie for his father reveals something profound about childhood and poverty. 10-year-old children should not have to become protectors and providers. They shouldn't carry the weight of adult problems on their small shoulders. But in families living on the economic edge, children often do. They hear their parents, whispered worried conversations about bills. They notice when dinner portions get smaller. They feel the stress radiating from adults trying desperately to keep everything together. And sometimes, like Marcus, they try to fix it in whatever way they can imagine. Marcus's lie wasn't really about a parking ticket. It was about a child trying to save his father from drowning. It was about love manifesting as misguided sacrifice. Judge Caprio understood this. He could have lectured Marcus about perjury and the serious legal consequences of lying in court. Instead, he redirected that impulse. He channeled Marcus's love for his father into something healthier. Trust that his father could handle his own burdens. That might be the most important lesson of the entire story. Love doesn't mean taking away someone's agency or responsibility. Love means supporting them as they face their challenges. Marcus learned that his role wasn't to rescue his father, but to stand beside him. For children in similar situations watching this video, understand this. Your parents. Problems are not your fault, and not your responsibility to fix. Your job is to be a kid, to learn and grow and dream. Adults who love you want to protect you from their struggles, not burden you with them. If you find yourself in Marcus's position, trying to take blame for something you didn't do, please talk to a trusted teacher, counselor, or family member. There are better ways to help. Share this video with teachers, counselors, and anyone who works with children. Because recognizing when kids are carrying adult burdens is the first step in helping them. The medical debt angle of this story deserves its own examination. Susan Chen's cancer treatment left their family $90,000 in debt, despite having insurance. That's not unusual in America. Medical bankruptcy is the leading cause of personal bankruptcy in the United States. Families go from middle-class stability to desperate poverty because someone got sick. David was still fighting the hospital over billing errors more than a year after his wife's death. He was trying to contest charges while grieving, while working 2 jobs, while raising Marcus alone. The administrative burden of American healthcare falls heaviest on those least equipped to handle it. When Judge Caprio reduced the fine and extended the payment period, he was acknowledging a reality that many courts ignore. You can't get blood from a stone. Piling fees and penalties on people who are already financially destroyed doesn't serve justice. It just pushes them further into holes they can't climb out of. Some municipalities have reformed their fine and fee systems, recognizing that regressive penalties disproportionately harm the poor. But many haven't. Parking tickets, court costs, and administrative fees become obstacles that trap people in poverty. Miss a payment, get a penalty. Can't pay the penalty, get a warrant. Have a warrant, lose your license. Lose your license, can't get to work. Can't get to work, lose your job. It's a spiral that destroys lives over minor infractions. Judge Caprio's approach offered an alternative model: proportional consequences, consideration of ability to pay, opportunity to make things right through service, instead of just cash. It's not perfect, but it's more humane than the assembly line justice many courts dispense. Tell us in the comments. Have you or someone you know been trapped by fines you couldn't pay? How did you get out of it? The viral nature of this story raises interesting questions about justice and public attention. Would David have received the same treatment if cameras weren't present? Judge Caprio's defenders would say yes, absolutely. He brought this approach to every case, regardless of media attention. His critics might argue that the cameras incentivized leniency to create viral moments. The truth is probably more nuanced. Judge Caprio's genuine compassion seems evident in decades of cases, not just the ones that went viral. But the presence of cameras did serve a purpose. It created accountability and transparency. It showed the public what justice could look like. It sparked conversations about judicial discretion, poverty, and punishment. Those conversations matter. Most justice happens behind closed doors. Most defendants don't have viral videos advocating for them. Most judges face pressure to process cases quickly, collect revenue from municipalities, and project toughness. Judge Caprio's viral moments created space for alternative approaches. They gave other judges permission to exercise compassion. They reminded the public that judges are human beings who can choose mercy. But we shouldn't need viral moments to get compassionate justice. That's the tragedy beneath the heartwarming story. Marcus and David's case caught attention because it was exceptional. It shouldn't be exceptional. It should be normal. Every courtroom should consider circumstances. Every judge should see the people before them, not just case numbers. Every justice system should ask whether its punishments achieve anything beyond generating revenue and causing suffering. The fact that Judge Caprio stood out says more about the system's failures than his virtues. Hit the like button if you think every judge should be required to watch this video as part of their training. Marcus's essay, written 6 weeks after the hearing, demonstrated remarkable emotional intelligence for a child his age. He understood the complexity of what happened. He recognized his mistake. He grasped the bigger lesson about respect and trust. He acknowledged the systemic issues affecting his family and others. That essay is required reading now in some law schools studying therapeutic jurisprudence, the idea that the law itself should be a healing agent. Marcus articulated what scholars spend careers trying to explain. Justice should make people better, not just punish them for being bad. His observation that, quote, sometimes judges care about people, not just rules, cuts to the heart of an ongoing debate in legal philosophy. Should judges be strict constructionists who apply the law uniformly, regardless of circumstances? Or should they be allowed discretion to consider context and individual situations? There's no easy answer. Too much discretion can lead to inconsistency and bias. Too little can lead to cruel outcomes. Judge Caprio walked that line by being transparent about his reasoning. He explained why circumstances mattered in each case. He didn't just arbitrarily let some people off while punishing others. He created a framework. Accountability plus compassion equals justice. Marcus understood this instinctively. In his essay, he didn't ask for his father to be excused from responsibility. He acknowledged the mistake, but he recognized that how we hold people accountable matters as much as whether we hold them accountable. That 10-year-old boy figured out what policymakers and judges argue about endlessly. Justice isn't just about the outcome, it's about the process. It's about whether people leave the system better or worse than they entered it. Comment below. At what age did you learn what real justice means? Was it from a book, an experience, or a person? David's transformation from that hearing demonstrates the power of second chances. He didn't just pay the reduced fine and move on. He internalized the experience. He changed his behavior permanently. He paid forward the grace he received by helping others. He became a better version of himself. That's what second chances are supposed to do. They're not about letting people off the hook. They're about creating conditions where people can learn from mistakes without being destroyed by them. David was held accountable through the fine and community service, but he was also given space to grow. The community service requirement was particularly brilliant. Judge Caprio could have just reduced the fine and been done with it. Instead, he created an opportunity for David to serve others, to see people in worse situations, to develop empathy and perspective. And by requiring Marcus to participate in some of those hours, he created a teaching moment for the boy. Marcus learned that his father wasn't weak for making a mistake. He saw his father take responsibility and make amends. He witnessed his father using his skills to help people. That's worth more than any lecture about responsibility. The ripple effects continue. David hiring other struggling immigrants, Marcus volunteering at the shelter, the scholarship fund in Susan's memory, the contractors David recruited for renovation projects. Each of these represents justice that keeps giving long after the gavel fell. That's the ultimate measure of whether justice worked. Not just whether the case was resolved, but whether the resolution created more good in the world. By that standard, Judge Caprio's handling of this case was a resounding success. Share this with someone who's made a mistake and needs to know that one error doesn't define their entire life. Judge Caprio's retirement marked the end of an era, but his influence continues. Several judges around the country have explicitly cited him as inspiration for bringing more humanity to their courtrooms. Law schools show his videos in classes on judicial ethics and discretion. Reform advocates use his cases as examples of what's possible when the system prioritizes people over process. But sustainable change requires more than individual judges choosing compassion. It requires structural reform, income-based fine systems so penalties don't disproportionately harm the poor, community service options as alternatives to cash payments, sealing of records for minor infractions so people aren't permanently marked by small mistakes, diversion programs that address root causes instead of just punishing symptoms. These reforms don't happen automatically. They require advocacy, public pressure, and political will. They require citizens demanding better from their justice systems. They require voters electing prosecutors and judges who value rehabilitation over pure punishment. Marcus's dream of becoming a judge represents the next generation of reform. Young people who've experienced the system's sharp edges often become the most effective reformers. They understand viscerally what's broken because they've lived it. Marcus will bring that perspective to the bench someday, assuming he achieves his goal. Imagine a courtroom 30 years from now, where Judge Marcus Chen presides with the same compassion and wisdom he learned from Judge Caprio. Imagine him seeing another struggling family and remembering what it felt like to stand where they're standing. Imagine the cycle continuing, justice begetting justice, compassion multiplying across generations. That's the real victory of this story. Not just that one family was helped, but that the help planted seeds for systemic change. Tell us in the comments what changes you'd make to the justice system if you had the power. Dream big. Imagine what's possible. The critics of Judge Caprio's approach aren't entirely wrong to raise concerns. Consistency in application of law matters. If judges have unlimited discretion, you can get wildly different outcomes based on which judge you happen to draw. That creates fairness problems. The solution isn't to eliminate discretion entirely. It's to create frameworks for exercising it. Guidelines that consider factors like ability to pay, circumstances of the offense, and defendant's history. Training judges to spot and counteract their own biases. Transparency, so the public can see how discretion is being used. Judge Caprio didn't just arbitrarily do whatever he felt like. He had principles guiding his decisions. He considered whether someone was truly unable to pay or just unwilling. He assessed whether someone was taking responsibility or making excuses. He looked at patterns of behavior, not just single incidents. In David's case, all the indicators pointed towards someone who deserved a chance. First offense for this type of violation. Genuine hardship, not convenience, driving the behavior. Immediate acceptance of responsibility. No pattern of disrespecting the law. Taking concrete steps to make amends. These factors justified reduced consequences. If David had been a habitual parking violator, or if he'd made excuses instead of owning his mistake, or if he'd shown no remorse, the outcome might have been different. Context matters. That's not inconsistency, that's appropriate consideration of circumstances. The challenge is training all judges to make these distinctions fairly and consistently. Some judges are naturally more empathetic than others. Some come from privileged backgrounds and struggle to understand poverty's constraints. Some face pressure from municipalities that rely on fine revenue to balance budgets. Structural reforms can address these challenges. But individual judges like Frank Caprio show what's possible when someone chooses to see the humanity in everyone who appears before them. Like this video if you believe good people in broken systems can still make a difference while working to fix those systems. Susan Chen's absence haunts this story in ways both explicit and subtle. She died 14 months before the parking ticket incident. Her medical bills created the financial crisis. Her death left Marcus without his mother, and David without his partner. The trip to the hospital that day was about her records, her bills, her lingering presence. Grief complicates everything. David was navigating single parenthood while processing devastating loss. Marcus was growing up without the parent who'd been his primary caregiver. The parking violation was a minor thing that became major because they were already operating with zero margin for error. Judge Caprio recognized this. His questions about Susan weren't just gathering information, they were acknowledging that grief context matters. A man who just lost his wife and is drowning in medical debt isn't the same as someone who parks in handicapped spots out of pure selfishness. Some might argue that personal tragedies shouldn't affect how laws are applied. Rules are rules. But laws aren't mathematical formulas operating in vacuum. They're tools for organizing human society. And humans are messy, complicated creatures, dealing with joy and loss and everything in between. A justice system that can't account for grief, for poverty, for desperation, for love, isn't serving justice, it's serving itself. Susan's memory motivated both father and son throughout the ordeal. David worked crushing hours, partly to honor her sacrifice during her illness. Marcus tried to protect his father because he'd already lost one parent and couldn't bear failing the other. Her absence was present in every moment. The scholarship fund David created in her name became a way to transform grief into legacy. Susan's suffering and death produced enormous medical debt that nearly destroyed their family. But from that destruction, David built something that would help other families afford school supplies, field trips, and educational opportunities. Grief became generosity. Loss became legacy. Share this with someone who's grieving and needs to know that beauty can eventually grow from even the most devastating losses. 3 years after the hearing, a reporter followed up with the Chen family for a "Where Are They Now" piece. The resulting article painted a picture of a family that had truly transformed. Marcus, then 13, was thriving. He'd made the honor roll every semester since the incident. He'd developed a passion for debate club, arguing points with the same intensity he'd once used trying to take blame for his father. His debate coach said he was particularly effective when arguing about criminal justice reform and social inequality. He speaks from experience, the coach noted. It makes him authentic and powerful. David's business had stabilized. He'd moved into a larger apartment in a better neighborhood with good schools. He'd been able to reduce his hours while maintaining income because his reputation had grown. Word of mouth in the contractor community spread that David Chen did quality work at fair prices and treated his employees well. He had more business than he could handle. The medical debt that once seemed insurmountable had been reduced to manageable levels. Between the GoFundMe donations, his increased income, and negotiations with the hospital that produced some debt forgiveness, he'd paid off more than half. He projected being debt-free within 5 years. That seemed miraculous given where they'd been. Marcus had returned to the courthouse twice since the initial hearing. Once for a school field trip, where he proudly told his classmates about his experience with Judge Caprio. Once for a ceremony where he received a Young Community Service Award for his volunteer work at the shelter. Judge Caprio, though retired, attended the ceremony and presented the award personally. "This young man," the judge said at the ceremony, "taught me as much as I taught him. He reminded me why I put on the robe every day for 5 decades. He reminded me that justice is about people, not just procedures. And he showed me that when we give people chances, they often exceed our highest expectations." Comment below if this story inspired you to volunteer or give back to your community. What did you do? How did it change you? The reporter asked Marcus if he still wanted to be a judge. "More than ever," he replied. "I used to think judges just decided who was guilty and who wasn't. But Judge Caprio showed me that judges can change lives. They can see past the crime to the person. They can make the system work for people instead of against them. That's what I want to do." He's started working toward that goal methodically. He researches law schools. He reads Supreme Court decisions for fun, annotating them with his own opinions. He's planned his high school courses to maximize preparation for college and eventual law school. He knows it's a long road, but he's committed. David expressed both pride and concern. "I'm so proud of him," he told the reporter. "But I also worry. The law can be a hard profession. I don't want him to lose his kindness trying to succeed in a tough field." Marcus overheard this comment and responded, "Dad, you taught me that being kind and being strong aren't opposites. Judge Caprio proved you can do both. I'm not going to lose my kindness. I'm going to use it as my strength." If a 13-year-old can figure that out, maybe there's hope for all of us. Hit that subscribe button if you believe kindness is strength, not weakness. The video of the original hearing continues to circulate online. New people discover it daily. Comment sections fill with personal stories of people sharing their own struggles with the justice system, with poverty, with loss. The video has become more than just a viral moment. It's become a touchstone for conversations about what justice should look like. Some comments are heartbreaking, people sharing how they lost jobs because of booted cars, families that fell apart because of unpayable fines, children who took on adult responsibilities far too young. The story resonates because it's not unique. It's exceptional only in its outcome, not its circumstances. Other comments are hopeful. People inspired to become judges, lawyers, or social workers. People motivated to volunteer or donate to causes helping struggling families. People who called their own parents to tell them they loved them. People who decided to pay forward grace they'd received. That's the power of stories like this. They don't just document what happened. They inspire what could happen. They show us better versions of ourselves and our institutions. They prove that the world doesn't have to be as cold and hard as it sometimes seems. Judge Caprio once said in an interview, "I don't want to be remembered as a judge who let people off easy. I want to be remembered as a judge who made people better." By that measure, his legacy is secure. Marcus and David are better. The people they've helped are better. The viewers of these viral videos who are inspired to show more compassion are better. The ripples spread far beyond one courtroom on one day. Tell us in the comments, how will you be better because of this story? What will you do differently tomorrow? The Chen family's story also highlights the importance of representation in the justice system. As Asian immigrants, they faced particular challenges navigating American institutions. Language barriers, cultural differences, and sometimes discrimination created additional obstacles. Judge Caprio, the grandson of Italian immigrants himself, understood the immigrant experience. He knew the fear of institutions. He recognized the pride that makes asking for help difficult. He saw the determination to build better lives for children. These shared values across different immigrant experiences created connection. Marcus's aspiration to become a judge matters because diversity on the bench improves justice. Judges who've experienced poverty understand its constraints. Judges who are immigrants or children of immigrants understand those unique challenges. Judges who've navigated tragedy understand how it shapes behavior. Representation isn't just about optics. It's about lived experience informing decisions. When Marcus eventually becomes a judge, if he achieves that dream, he'll bring perspective that many of his colleagues won't have. He'll remember standing before the bench as a scared 10-year-old, trying to protect his father. He'll remember the weight of medical debt and the shame of not being able to pay a simple fine. He'll remember what compassion felt like when he needed it most. That memory will inform every decision he makes. That's what representation accomplishes. It ensures that people making decisions understand the consequences for those affected by them. Share this video with someone who thinks diversity doesn't matter in professional roles. Show them why representation transforms outcomes. The financial aspect of this case deserves final examination. $350 doesn't sound like much to many people. It's a car payment, a few tankfuls of gas, a grocery trip, a nice dinner for two. But for families living paycheck to paycheck, $350 might as well be $3,000. That's the gap between experiences that makes empathy so crucial. Judges, lawyers, and court officials typically come from middle-class or wealthy backgrounds. They often can't fathom that a few $100s could be catastrophic. They think, just pay the fine, without recognizing that for some people, there is no just about it. David Chen, working 2 jobs, could not easily produce $350 without sacrificing something essential: rent, food, utilities, gas for work. Something critical would go unpaid. And then the cascade begins. Late fees, service shutoffs, evictions, repossessions. Judge Caprio understood this. The reduction of $50 and the 90-day payment plan acknowledged reality. It held David accountable while not destroying him financially. That's the balance compassionate justice seeks. Some argue this creates moral hazard, that if people know judges might reduce fines, they'll break laws more freely. But research doesn't support that concern. Most people don't weigh potential judicial mercy when deciding whether to park illegally. They just try to get through the day. What reduces recidivism and improves compliance is treating people with dignity and offering them realistic paths to compliance. David didn't park in handicapped spots again because Judge Caprio scared him straight. He didn't do it because he'd been treated with respect and given a chance to make things right. That motivated better behavior far more than harsh punishment would have. Like this video if you believe dignity and respect change behavior more effectively than humiliation and harshness. As we reach the end of this story, several themes emerge that transcend one family's experience with one judge. First, children should not have to sacrifice themselves to save their parents from systemic failures. Marcus's willingness to lie spoke to his love, but it also spoke to a broken system that puts families in impossible positions. We need economic and healthcare reforms that prevent 10-year-olds from feeling responsible for their parents' financial crises. Second, justice and compassion aren't opposites. They're partners. Accountability without compassion becomes cruelty. Compassion without accountability becomes chaos. Judge Caprio demonstrated how to balance both, holding people responsible while recognizing their humanity. Third, second chances work. David didn't abuse the mercy he received. He internalized the lesson, changed his behavior, and paid forward the grace. Most people, given genuine opportunities to do better, will take them. Our justice system should be designed around that reality, not around assuming the worst of everyone. Fourth, viral moments can catalyze change. The attention this case received sparked conversations about judicial discretion, poverty and justice, and the role of empathy in legal systems. Those conversations lead to awareness, which leads to advocacy, which leads to reform. Stories matter because they move people in ways statistics cannot. Fifth, legacy is built through how we treat others. Judge Caprio will be remembered not for the number of cases he decided, but for the lives he changed. Marcus will carry forward that example, potentially influencing thousands more people throughout his career. Compassion compounds across generations. Drop one final comment telling us what this story meant to you. How did it change your perspective? What will you do differently? Marcus Chen sits in his 8th grade classroom as this story reaches its conclusion. He's working on an essay for English class about personal heroes. He's writing about Judge Frank Caprio, of course, but also about his father, about strength that looks like humility, about love that asks for help when needed, about grace received and grace given. His teacher, reading over his shoulder, comments that it's beautiful writing. "You have a gift for seeing into people's hearts," she tells him. Marcus smiles. "I learned from the best," he replies. Across town, David Chen is painting a living room bright yellow. His client, an elderly woman, offers him coffee. They chat about families, about loss, about starting over. She mentions her grandson is applying to colleges but struggling with expenses. David tells her about the scholarship fund he manages. "Tell him to apply," David says. "We help kids who need it. That's what it's for." In his retirement, Frank Caprio reads through letters from people whose lives he touched. Marcus's essay is there, along with dozens of others. He smiles, feeling satisfied, not because he was always perfect or always right, but because he tried, because he cared, because he remembered that behind every case number was a human being deserving of dignity. 3 people connected by one moment, living proof that how we treat each other matters, that justice without mercy is injustice, that children are watching and learning from every adult action, that one person wielding authority with compassion can change the trajectory of lives. If you've watched this far, you're part of this story too. You witnessed what happened. You felt the emotions. You considered the implications. Now comes your part. What will you do with what you've learned? Will you treat the next person who makes a mistake with more compassion? Will you look past surface judgments to see struggles you can't immediately perceive? Will you support reforms that make justice more just? Will you tell your own children about Marcus and David and Judge Caprio? Will you vote for judges who see people, not just defendants? Will you volunteer time or donate money to help families like the Chens? The story doesn't end when the video stops. It ends when you decide what it means for your life. Hit that subscribe button one last time if this story changed you. If it made you think differently about justice, compassion, and what we owe each other. Because we're going to keep telling stories like this. Stories about ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges. Stories about systems that fail and individuals who succeed despite them. Stories about the complicated, beautiful, difficult business of being human. Next week, we'll share the story of a homeless veteran who stood before a judge charged with theft. What he stole will shock you. What the judge did about it will restore your faith in humanity all over again. You won't want to miss it. Marcus Chen ended his hero essay with these words. Judge Caprio taught me that the most important question isn't, what does the law say? It's, what does the person need? Sometimes they're the same thing. Sometimes they're not. Good judges know the difference. From the mouth of a 13-year-old comes wisdom many adults never grasp. Behind every mistake is a story. Behind every story is a person. Behind every person is infinite potential for growth, change, and redemption. This is what Marcus learned standing in that courtroom 3 years ago. This is what his father learned, accepting grace he didn't think he deserved. This is what Judge Caprio practiced for 50 years on the bench. This is what millions of viewers learned, watching one family's moment of crisis become a testament to human dignity. And this is what you can carry forward into your own life, your own decisions, your own encounters with people who need exactly what Marcus and David received. To be seen, to be heard, to be given a chance. Justice, in its purest form, isn't about punishment or revenge. It's about making things right. It's about creating conditions where people can be their best selves. It's about balancing accountability with understanding. It's about remembering that we're all one bad day, one medical crisis, one parking ticket away from standing where someone else is standing, desperately hoping someone sees our humanity. Judge Frank Caprio saw it. Marcus Chen learned it. David Chen lived it. Now you've witnessed it. What will you do with that knowledge? The gavel has fallen. The case is closed. But the story, your part in it, begins now. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. Thank you for believing that we can build a world where justice and compassion walk hand in hand, where children can be children, where mistakes don't destroy lives, and where everyone gets the chance they need to become who they're meant to be. Drop one last comment sharing this message with the world. Compassion is justice. Mercy is strength. Love is the law that matters most. Until next time, remember, the next Marcus Chen might be standing in front of you tomorrow. The next David Chen might be the person you cut off in traffic. The next person needing grace might be you. Choose compassion. Always choose compassion.